Good morning, everybody. I want to read a little of Isaiah 2. Oh, I got to turn this around. I don't know if you can see it from here. I was going to turn the camera around. And do like the front camera. I forgot. That's something, it looks like a camera that the city put up maybe 2 years ago. I don't know if you saw it. I noticed it maybe about 2 years ago. And it looks like a camera. It's got the antennas. It's something that the city put up. We'll talk today about the police state. But I read this last night, Isaiah 2. The word of the Lord that came to Isaiah. It shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. From the church and from the kingdom, that's where the administration of law and justice actually goes from. He shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they will beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation. And the mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself. But listen to this. Therefore forgive them not. This is a prophecy of judgment. That's Isaiah 2:9. Enter into the rock, and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he will be brought low. Upon all the ships of Tarshish. And this is a prophetic judgment, a prophetic God ruling in nations. And they will go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty, when he rises to shake terribly the earth. Go into the clefts, go hide into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, wherein he is to be accounted. That's the whole theme. I'm just reading through Isaiah, chapter by chapter. I might comment. I don't want to go long because I guess we're going to do some of this today. I saw not a documentary. I saw a special on PBS News about 3 weeks ago, and it was on Camden, New Jersey. Now, sometimes when I drive to New York City area, New Jersey, sometimes I go through Camden. Camden is one of the highest crime rate cities it was in the U.S. And I have crossed from Pennsylvania. You come in from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and you go over the Delaware River, the bridge. It's nice. I've done it. Not a lot. That's not the normal route I take. And then you come into New Jersey, you come into Camden. That road, I believe, is Highway 80 when you do that, which is not the... 78 is the best highway, interstate, to take in. If you're going from Pennsylvania to New York City, 78 is the one. But I did 80 once, and it's a toll road, and it's not good. But the documentary was interesting. It was on how these last 5-7 years or so that the police department in Camden, it's run by a white chief, which is fine. Got a lot of black minority in Camden. And then I even interviewed a black police officer that grew up in Camden. He's a boxing and all. But it showed that the way they changed policing in Camden to deal with the crime problem was they put cameras. They put many cameras all over the city of Camden. And the chief defended it by saying, well, they're not hidden, but they basically are recording many of the corners, blocks, streets, homes. It's legal to do. But as I watched it, I thought, geez, it's like living in a police state. And some countries in Europe do the same type of thing. Then they had the cops. They showed you them like in the streets and, out during the day and, interacting. And as I watched it, I thought, there's just something wrong with that. Because it was sort of it just felt like a police state. Then they interviewed a couple of black business owners who said, yes, we did have problems with crime. But some of the complaints from the black business owners and all were, if the city of Camden asked us, do you want to be videotaped all over? Do you want to have your home videotaped? Do you want to have... The black business owners said, I would have preferred to have the higher crime rate than to be living under like a police state. I found it interesting because that's the sense of it. Now, for some of the pastors in churches, when my friend Alston was here the other night, and when Alston rang the bell, and he might have thought I didn't answer the door earlier in the day because my car was here, and I told Alston, I said, when you see my car outside, it's going to be because I'm on my motorcycle. Last time he was around, I didn't have my motorcycle. But then when he came at about 5:30 or so, he rang the bell a couple of times, and I answered it and hung out with him. And of course, Alston, because of his past, he has that look. Sometimes he'll try to stare you in the face. And I just look at Alston. I'm probably one of the few people that just looks back, if it's a long stare. And I'm not being mean, but that's something that's in him. And then we'll talk. But he was telling me the other night, he went to one of the churches here. And we're just seeking for help, realizing maybe he's going through struggles. But the church, he wanted to talk to the pastor, and there were vehicles there, but it was at night, and they have a lot of security now. This is Rock City Church. And if Pastor David, you're a good man, if you ever see this, this is a word of the Lord to you. But the security guys stopped him and said he couldn't talk. But then there were services going on one night that he went over there, the last few weeks. And when they said, you can't talk, the security people that Rock City hires, it's like cop type feeling. I had that happen to me there once. I was leaving the church. I was with Cameron. And then I wanted to get my cigarettes and was going to come back to stand in front, talk to some of the guys. So I went to my car at Rock City Church to get the cigarettes. So I ran like a little bit, and the security guy chased me down. And he's got all the security. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to my car to get cigarettes. Look, you have a police security environment that I don't think is fitting for the outreach that you want to do. So, Alston, after he tried to talk to one of the pastors, he was going to go into the service. It was a church service going on. And the security stopped him at the door inside the church, Rock City, and said, you can't come in here. Look, I've had some of my homeless friends that have they live here on the streets, and Rock City put up all types of security things, and they've come down almost harder with security and cops on some of the homeless than the businesses. Rock City had bought that whole complex there, which is in Flower Bluff on Flower Bluff Drive in Walgreens. So this is a beneficial. If you're an apostle, David, or a prophet, or whatever gift you have, iron sharpens iron. So that's the word of the Lord to you. The other thing with the security in churches, which I've mentioned before, understand Jesus when he's with his men. You see me with a lot of my friends. Though there was law enforcement, Roman soldiers, there wasn't hired Roman soldiers or hired security with Jesus and his team and the apostles and others. As a matter of fact, the security of that day, Roman soldiers going through Acts, they were the ones coming against Jesus and his apostles. You never had a scenario. You said, but John, how could we protect our church? Because there are a few churches that do this. They have cops when you go in, they're all hired. That is such a bad witness, because when I go to the Corpus Christi Cathedral, you don't have that. So, those of you that say we want the word of the Lord, okay, listen to the word of the Lord. Obey God's word. Now, I read last night in the Corpus Christi Caller another thing about the 11-year-old girl who made the false claim that she was kidnapped. It seems as if the Caller Times is kind of going along with the district attorney, Mark Gonzalez, and they're just doing this as a scare thing to warn other people that might do it, because it said they're not sure if they're going to bring charges, and she might have to turn herself in. They might, detain her for a night in a juvenile facility. Okay, I understand this. They're playing somewhat of a little thing here. But you should settle it today. Because you have, I know so many things where cops have, not Mitchell, yes, I know so many other cases where you guys have crossed lines. You still have officers who choked people at parties, assaulted multiple people while off duty, assault cases. And these people are still on your department. Some of the same types of crimes that take place with the guys on the streets. And they consider, in some cases, those are considered felony assaults. And you have officers on the job today that have had a history of that, and they're still there. So, because of that background, I would suggest today, you've done enough on the 11-year-old girl to scare her. So how about today you do something righteous? I'm going to go short on this one. I wanted to share that little thing with you. I believe that whole thing with my friend Don, and now they're going to move on him on a lien on that property. Everybody that watches these videos from other states and other cities understands something. That the criteria for the police to enter my friend Don's property with warrants and to go through his entire house and to inside and out and through the cabinet, the entire thing that warranted the CCPD to do that was not a tip on meth house. It was one complaint that's anonymous that I think came from Markle, the chief himself, that said, someone said you threw something off the pier. Maybe Don says, maybe I was getting a fish, because he fishes. It's like a fishing cabin. That one thing was enough to warrant a complete search of that residence inside and out, which now is going to lead to the foreclosure of that property. Now, where do you have that? In your city. All my friends from New Jersey. Can you imagine cops showing up at your house and saying, we have a warrant to search this house inside and out? And you would say, what do you mean? Imagine if they said, somebody made an anonymous complaint that we saw some chipped paint in your kitchen. That's enough to warrant a complete search of your residence in Corpus Christi and to initiate a lien upon your property, which eventually can go into foreclosure by debt of the city. So, for the lesson that you want to give the 11-year-old girl, why don't you have priorities within this city? Why don't you have priorities before you decide to set up cameras? Because you can. The black business owner said, I feel like I'm living in a police state. All the money today for the taxes and all in the foreclosure, the biggest expense is salaries of cops and firefighters. I saw a little news ad the other day on one of the local KIII, and it was just sort of like a commercial promoting the city. I found it interesting. It showed all the nice things of Corpus Christi and the water and the Gulf, and you see me make videos and some. And then they showed firefighters and all. They didn't have, in the promotion of the city, that little commercial on Channel 3 News and Channel 3. It showed no cops. I found that interesting. I simply believe that the dynamic that Christians and others think, when Paul talks about authority and all, in the Romans 12. It wasn't talking about civilian security forces infiltrating the society. Okay? It's not showing faith when we in society believe, unless we have civilian policing out there. I don't believe the problem is with the people themselves that are getting hired for jobs as cops. I believe the overall problem is the dynamic in the country that permits, we're trying to do our best, and now you guys are going to be out in the public all the time. There were multiple times in the last few weeks when I take those rides to Mathis and all. Sometimes you'll have a cop or a constable or whatever drive in the left lane slow, under the speed limit, which is against the law. But they do that and they back up all the traffic. You know, it might be some 25-year-old kid that says, wow, look at how much power I have to actually cause hazardous condition on the highway by doing that. But they do that quite often. And they're in the left lane, passing lane, which you're only supposed to be in if you're passing. And then you see all the other vehicles on the right. And I'll tell you, I do ride my motorcycle around. It's dangerous for me to ride that motorcycle. They're doing construction on this road, and even on my car, when I shift, because the road, they're doing construction, you shift from the left lane to the right to exit, the car kind of makes a dump, like goes low. And on the bike, it is dangerous. But when I see cops doing that stuff, like left lane, real slow, and all traffic's backed up, really that's against the law to do that. It's only for passing, and if you're doing, below the speed limit, just to back everybody up. So what we have done in this country is we have put authority in the hands of sometimes of kids, sometimes of criminals. And that authority has been used in a way that's really a violation of law in those particular instances. And the public in some churches and some pastors actually believe, like I gave the example, we need to hire them to be at our churches to protect us from anything that breaks out. What was the last verse in Isaiah? Well, I'll have to end it because I don't want to go long. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein he is to be accounted of. Quit looking to men for the protection of your community. Quit feeling like I need to have this presence. These people have to be out there all the time. And if they cross the line, we're willing to live with that. We're going to hire them for our churches and all. The way we are now in this country, yes, they're going to have to do their jobs. But the overall problem is feeling like the Camden city did. That if we record everything and everywhere, in every corner, and we have this force of cops out all day, they were interacting, talking, walking up and down the street. That felt like a police state. That felt like a police state. Okay? Pastors, hear the word of the Lord. Cease ye from man. How you can justify people tithing, which tithing is not under, and then for that money to be going in and paying into salaries for security. And yet I go to the Catholic Cathedral, and the money there is used for the poor.